A 9-year-old girl was handcuffed and pepper-sprayed by Rochester police officers responding to a call of family trouble. CNN. A 9-year-old girl was handcuffed and pepper-sprayed by police officers responding to a report of family trouble in Rochester, New York, on Wednesday, according to Rochester Deputy Police Chief Andre Anderson. Two body camera videos of the incident released by the police department on Sunday show officers restraining the child, putting her in handcuffs and attempting to get her inside the back of a police vehicle as she is heard repeatedly crying and calling for her father. Officers are then seen pepper spraying the girl after she doesn't follow commands to put her feet inside the car. The girl was transported to Rochester General Hospital where she was later released, Anderson said. Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren said during a news conference Sunday that she had spoken with the girl's mother and that the city's person in crisis mental health team would be reaching out to the family. It is clear from the video that we need to do more in supporting our children and families, Warren said during the press conference. Rochester Police Chief Cynthia Herriott-Sullivan said that what happened was not acceptable. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that for a 9-year-old to have to be pepper sprayed is okay. It's not, Herriott-Sullivan said. I don't see that as we are as a department. And we're going to do the work we have to do to ensure that these kinds of things don't happen. Police say they were responding to a report of family trouble. Officers were called to a home on the afternoon of January 29 for a report of family trouble, Anderson said Sunday. The officers were told the girl was suicidal, and that she had indicated that she wanted to kill herself and she wanted to kill her mom, the deputy chief explained. The girl tried to flee from officers, Anderson said, and video released by police shows an officer chase her in an attempt to provide assistance. Afterward, he said, her mother arrived and the body camera video shows the two arguing. Anderson said officers then decided to remove the child from the situation and transport her to an area hospital. But the girl refused to get inside a police vehicle, thrashed around, and kicked an officer, knocking his body camera around, according to Anderson. It didn't appear as if she was resisting the officers. She was trying not to be restrained to go to the hospital, Anderson said, as the officers made numerous attempts to try to get her in the car. An officer sprayed the young child with OC spray to get her in the car. The body camera video shows the girl repeatedly crying out for her father, while being physically restrained by officers. She is seen screaming before her head is held down against the snow-covered ground and is handcuffed. A struggle ensues between the girl and officers as they attempt to get her inside the back of a police vehicle. At one point, one officer says, "You're acting like a child," to which the girl can be heard responding, "I am a child." Later in the video, a female officer is seen talking to the girl, eventually saying, "This is your last chance. Otherwise pepper spray's going in your eyeballs." About a minute later, another officer can be heard saying, "Just spray her at this point." The female officer is seen shaking a can that appears to be pepper spray and the child continues to scream. The officers involved in the incident were not identified by police, nor were the child or her mother. Anderson said Sunday he was not making any excuses for what transpired and that the department is looking at a culture change. The department is in the process of reviewing many policies and looking to make changes. According to Anderson, Mayor Warren said she has directed the chief of police to conduct a complete and thorough investigation of the incident and said she welcomes the review of what happened by the city's police accountability board. The mayor explained that the video reminded her of her own young daughter. "I have a 10-year-old daughter. So she's a child, she's a baby. And I can tell you that this video, as a mother, is not anything that you want to see. It's not," Warren said. "We have to understand compassion, empathy. When you have a child that is suffering in this way, and calling out for her dad. I saw my baby's face in her face. Disproportionate number of current and former military personnel arrested in Capitol attack. CNN analysis shows active military personnel and veterans are overrepresented among the first 150 people to be arrested and have records released for federal offenses in the violence and insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Analysis by CNN of Pentagon records and court proceedings show 21 of the 150, or 14%, are current or former members of the U.S. military. That is more than double the proportion of servicemen and women and veterans in the adult U.S. population, calculated from Census Bureau and Department of Defense statistics. In 2018, there were 1.3 million active duty members of the services and 18 million veterans. Together, they comprised just 5.9% of the overall 327 million U.S. population at the end of 2018. 2 of those arrested are in the Army, and 2 are National Guardsmen. Of the 17 veterans, 6 are former Army, 8 are former Marines, 2 served in the Navy, and 1 was in the Air Force. Their service records show at least 1 served in Vietnam, others were deployed in the wars of Afghanistan and Iraq. At least 1 earned a Purple Heart. They were discharged with a variety of ranks and included officers, a captain and a lieutenant colonel. And on January 6, the active and former military personnel are accused of declaring a war at home, attacking the Constitution they once swore to defend. Some even equipped with military gear and weapons. The world watched as hundreds of rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol in what became a deadly insurrection. 5 people died due to the events at the Capitol that day, including a police officer hit in the head with a fire extinguisher and a woman trampled to death. Analysis of the charges faced by some of the veterans show prosecutors say they led the violence and lawlessness that disrupted the certification of President Joe Biden's election win. Veterans in Proud Boys. CNN tracked down 9 of the accused veterans. The most well-known of those arrested so far is Joseph Randall Biggs. The 37-year-old is an Army combat veteran. He is also one of the leaders of the far-right Proud Boys group that is known for violent clashes with anti-fascists or Antifa during protests from Portland, Oregon, to Washington, D.C. Biggs became an online personality of the far-right, spouting bombastic and sometimes violent rhetoric toward women and Antifa. As far back as 2012, there were a plethora of tweets mentioning sexual violence on his @RamboBiggs account, which has been archived by the Media Matters for America group. One said, "Every kiss begins with roofies," a reference to Rohypnol, the date rape drug. Biggs tweeted a rallying cry of death to Antifa and called on others to get guns and ammunition to take to a rally in Portland. His account was suspended by Twitter in 2019 for repeatedly violating the terms of service. One of his self-titled online shows was still being featured on the right-wing subscription website a week after his arrest. It began with computer-generated explosions and a tank firing out the letters BIGGS. On January 6, Biggs is accused of going far beyond rhetoric. In video CNN has reviewed from January 6, Biggs is seen commanding his Proud Boy troops and guiding them to the Capitol steps. Federal prosecutors say he did aid, abet, counsel, command, induce, or procure others to unlawfully enter the U.S. Capitol by means of destruction of federal property. He is charged with unlawful entry, disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds, and obstructing an official proceeding of Congress. In the criminal complaint, federal agents say Biggs was among the first to enter the Capitol during the mob attack. One of Biggs' Proud Boys, Dominic Pizzola, who has been charged with several crimes including conspiracy, is shown on video smashing a window of the Capitol with a plastic shield, which several people climbed through before a door was opened. Pizzola's lawyer said he was denied contact with his jailed client, which, he said, undercut his ability to mount a meaningful legal defense. "Hey Biggs, what do you gotta say?" a voice off camera says in a video reviewed by the FBI. "This is awesome," Biggs replies on camera before walking into the Capitol building within 20 seconds of the door opening, the FBI agent alleged in court documents. CNN visited Biggs' home in Ormond Beach, Florida, just north of the Daytona International Speedway, to hear what he had to say now that he is out on bail and on house arrest. He peeked through a curtain on his door when we identified ourselves, but stayed mostly hidden. When asked if he was an insurrectionist, Biggs replied, "Oh God, no." But as we pressed for why he was inside the Capitol building, he threatened to call police. "If you don't get the F***K out of here, I'm calling the police right now," he said, pushing his phone around the curtain to take video. Proud Boy and would-be politician. A 4-hour drive south from Biggs is the Miami home of Gabriel Garcia, a former Army captain, now a Proud Boy extremist who is also accused of involvement in the insurrection. Last year he ran for the Florida House of Representatives as a Republican. Though he told CNN affiliate WPLG at the time there were questions about the election system. "There's people starting to doubt this process," he said then. Garcia lost in the Republican primary. Now he is charged with certain acts during civil disorder, aiding and abetting, knowingly entering or remaining in any restricted building or ground without lawful authority, violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds. According to the federal complaint, Garcia was inside the Capitol when he said on a video, "We just went ahead and stormed the Capitol. It's about to get ugly." The affidavit says he called police who were trying to stop the siege F***King traitors. But when we tried to get comment from him, he had no problem calling the Miami-Dade police. He is free on $100,000 bail, WPLG reported. His lawyer told the station, "He didn't commit any violent acts up there and didn't intend to." Revolution call allegedly from dog rescuer in the Texas city of Longview, between Dallas and the Louisiana border. Ryan Nichols lives in a gated community with large homes and big lawns. A neighbor called police to try to stop us from approaching Nichols' house down the street at Nichols' wholesale business. A man refused to say if he was inside and threatened to call 911. Nichols, 30, says in an ad that he has made millions of dollars here on the e-commerce platforms, and claims he can help others do the same. A former Marine, Nichols was once featured on The Ellen DeGeneres Show in 2018 after video of his work rescuing dogs during Hurricane Florence was shared widely over the internet. On January 6, federal prosecutors say Nichols was at the Capitol with a Texas buddy called Alex Harkrider, who is also a former Marine. The FBI says Nichols can be seen on video yelling through a bullhorn towards the large crowd, "If you have a weapon, you need to get your weapon." The complaint says another video shows Nichols shouting, "This is the second revolution right here, folks." Opening square bracket ... closing square bracket. This is not a peaceful protest. A person who recognized the men told the FBI, according to court documents. "I have photo screenshots from their social media pages showing they were there and showing," Alex stated, "they were planning a civil war." The complaint says Nichols had a canister of OC pepper spray and a crowbar with him and sprayed what is believed to be pepper spray toward the Capitol entrance where federal agents were trying to stop the attack. Federal agents obtained a Snapchat photo they said was apparently shared by Harkrider. "We're in. 2 people killed already. We need all the patriots of this country to rally the F***K up and fight for our freedom or it's gone forever. Give us liberty, or give us death," the caption read. He and Nichols are charged with conspiracy and unlawful entry with a dangerous weapon, violent entry or disorderly conduct, civil disorder, assaulting a federal officer using a deadly or dangerous weapon, and aiding and abetting, according to a federal complaint. They both remain in jail. Purple Heart recipient lives with parents 3 hours south, in the Houston suburb of Spring, Texas. Army veteran Joshua Lawler is staying with his parents as part of his bond requirements. The home is part of a planned community with tree-lined streets and large brick homes at the ends of long driveways. It's a far cry from Iraq, where Lawler was deployed, and from Washington, D.C. On January 6, a screen capture of Lawler's Facebook account shows a picture of people wearing red "Make America Great Again" hats entering the Capitol, with a caption saying, "Busting in." The complaint against him said he was live streaming on Facebook while taking part in the siege. He is also captured on police body camera video admitting to violence against officers. The affidavit says, "Yeah, I'm good. Just got gassed and fought with cops that I never thought would happen," Lawler posted on Facebook, the affidavit said. Lawler's father came out of his home, holding a small fluffy dog. After greeting CNN in a soft voice, he said, "I can't tell you anything." He did confirm his son was an Iraq War veteran, awarded a Purple Heart. Lawler told the federal court hearing he lives with his parents, is being treated for PTSD, and has been receiving disability since 2009, according to CNN affiliate KPRC, which attended the hearing. He has been charged with numerous offenses including violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds, obstructing or impeding law enforcement officer during civil disorder, and obstructing federally protected functions. Lawler was released on bond. The court ordered that guns, body armor and gas masks be secured by Lawler's father. He will have no knowledge of where they are, Grover Lawler told the judge. According to KPRC, more veterans accused of conspiracy. The first people to be charged by federal officials with conspiracy in connection with the insurrection are all veterans. Jessica Watkins, who served in the Army under another name, is also accused of being part of the far-right Oath Keepers. The complaint against her says she conspired with former Marine Donovan Crowell and Navy veteran Thomas Caldwell. CNN has reached out to the arrested veterans mentioned in this story and any lawyers listed on their court documents. Most did not respond. Lawler's representative said his client had no comment at this time. CNN is continuing to keep count of the number of military members arrested in connection to the insurrection, as well as police officers and others who have been trained or prepared for combat in the name of the United States. What we've seen too often is that this kind of ideological militancy is allowed to exist in the military, said former FBI agent Michael German, who spent years undercover in white supremacist and domestic extremist groups and is now a fellow at the Brennan Center for Justice. And there isn't enough effort to root it out and to actually paint it as what it is: an anti-democratic movement that's a threat to our security within our security forces. But he added that the threat extended outside the armed forces and law agencies. It's not just the military, veterans and the police officers who were involved in the violent and illegal activities, but the fact that these groups that have been engaged in militant violence across the country over the last 4 years and beyond have support among elected politicians. Powerful nor'easter takes aim at the East Coast and could bring up to 18 inches of snow to New York City. New York City and the surrounding region are expected to see major to extreme winter storm impacts through Tuesday due to a powerful nor'easter forecast to bring 12 to 18 inches of snowfall and wind gusts as high as 45 to 50 miles per hour. Extreme is the highest category, level 5 out of 5, on the Winter Storm Severity Index, issued by NOAA's Weather Prediction Center, and means extensive and widespread severe property damage is likely. Due to this heavy snow and strong winds, blizzard conditions are possible on Monday, according to the National Weather Service office in New York. The heaviest impact for the city is expected to be on Monday but will linger into Tuesday. Overall, more than 110 million Americans will feel winter's sting early this week as the nor'easter takes aim at the most densely populated cities along the East Coast. It's been almost 2 years since Washington, D.C., has had a snowfall greater than 1 inch, but that could change drastically by later Sunday. The city is under a winter storm warning through Sunday evening, with 4 to 8 inches of snow possible. Additional snow will likely fall on Monday. Forecasting snowfall amounts in the nation's capital is rarely easy. but confidence is increasing that the DC area will see a significant snowfall developing on Sunday and lasting into Monday, says CNN meteorologist Taylor Ward. The storm could bring the nation's capital as much as 10 inches of snow. This would end the 709-day streak that Washington, D.C., has gone without a snowfall greater than 1 inch. The only other time this has happened was a 788-day streak that ended in 2013, said CNN meteorologist Brandon Miller. Get the latest forecast. The storm's path on Sunday morning. More than 110 million people were under winter weather alerts from the southern Great Lakes to New England. The storm left heavy snow across northern Illinois and central Indiana, causing travel headaches. The storm will strengthen into a powerful nor'easter by Monday morning as it reaches the coast. This will be a long-duration event for many along the eastern seaboard as the system will be slow to exit. Snow will fall in periodic bursts over the next 3 days from D.C., Philadelphia, New York City to Boston, ending gradually from the southwest to the northeast. Major impacts expected. Strong winds will accompany the heavy snow, reducing visibility and causing power outages. Travel disruptions will be extensive from the ground to the air as the storm coats roads and runways with fresh snow. Snowfall rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour were reported near Chicago's suburbs late Saturday evening, where up to 9 inches of snow is forecast by Sunday night. As the storm moves east, it will reorganize and intensify. The highest snow accumulations will occur from New Jersey to southern New York, eastern Pennsylvania and parts of Maryland, where up to a foot of snow is possible. Ice and sleet accumulation is also a concern for portions of North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland and West Virginia. The highest totals will likely fall north of Charlotte and Raleigh, where up to 1/2 inch of ice is possible. The warm sector of this storm is creating numerous showers and embedded thunderstorms across the central and southeastern U.S. today. Expect a rainy Sunday in Atlanta before showers exit the region by the start of the work week. Areas farther west such as St. Louis and Springfield, Illinois, will see more of a rain-snow mix through Sunday evening. Exactly how much snow will stick to the ground remains uncertain. 1 week after areas of Iowa were pummeled by snow, the Hawkeye State could see a few additional inches by Sunday night. A developing nor'easter now is expected to be widespread by late Sunday morning. According to the National Weather Service in Baltimore and Washington, D.C., by Sunday afternoon into Monday, there is the potential of a changeover to sleet and freezing rain. With any nor'easter, there is uncertainty in the forecast snow totals because so much depends on the exact track of the low pressure. There seems to be a consensus amongst forecast models that moderate to heavy snow will occur from portions of Virginia to Pennsylvania and New Jersey. But there continues to be some uncertainty on the exact track of the low pressure Monday into Tuesday, Ward said. This will have a significant impact on how much snow falls from New York City into New England. A storm system that tracks parallel to the coast would provide greater snowfall, while a more eastward track out to sea would limit snow totals in New England. That could make the difference in places like Boston and New York City between seeing 4 inches of snow or a foot. Philadelphia's NWS office is forecasting more than 6 inches of snow with gusts of wind as high as 45 miles per hour, creating significant blowing and drifting snow. In its forecast discussion, the office also noted that the storm is forecast to be an abnormally long event with 36 or more hours of snow and wintry precipitation, and that the highest snow totals and rates will likely not happen until late Monday. Navalny. Thousands join fresh protests across Russia. Thousands of Russians have been taking part in unauthorized protests to demand the release of the jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny. More than 5,000 people have been detained, a monitoring group says. In Moscow, police closed metro stations and blocked off the city center. Mr. Navalny was jailed on his return to Russia after recovering from an attempt to kill him with a nerve agent. He blames the security services for the attack, but the Kremlin denies this. The opposition figure was arrested after arriving in Moscow from Germany, where he spent months recovering from the near-fatal incident. Billionaire claims ownership of Putin's palace. Russian anti-Putin anger spreads. We have to protest. Alexei Navalny. Russia's vociferous Putin critic. Russian authorities say Mr. Navalny was supposed to report to police regularly because of a suspended sentence for embezzlement. Mr. Navalny has denounced his detention as blatantly illegal, saying the authorities had allowed him to travel to Berlin for treatment for the Novichok poisoning, which happened in Russia last August. Mr. Navalny has blamed state security agents under Mr. Putin's orders for the attempt on his life, and investigative journalists have named Russian FSB agents suspected of the poisoning. But the Kremlin denies involvement and disputes the conclusion, by Western weapons experts, that Novichok was used. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has denied reports he's the owner of a vast palace on the Black Sea. As alleged by Mr. Navalny in a video that has gone viral in Russia and has been watched more than 100 times, Desire for Change as Putin retains support. Analysis box by Sarah Rainsford. Moscow correspondent. It's risky protesting in Russia. Even if you escape the police batons, you can be fired, face a hefty fine or criminal prosecution. So the fact that people turned out for a second weekend, right across Russia, is significant. The fact that there were fewer than last week, unsurprising. By blocking off central Moscow, the authorities were trying to prevent a large crowd gathering in one place and so play down the scale of dissent. Instead, they got protesters marching along main city streets to the hoots of passing cars whose passengers waved victory signs in support. Shopkeepers were drawn to their windows to watch, and in one beauty salon, women in hairnets stood filming on their phones as the crowd filed past. Most protesters I spoke to said they weren't fans or followers of Alexei Navalny in particular, but they are shocked at how he's been treated. They described him as a symbol of resistance and talked of their own desire for change. None of this means that Vladimir Putin is about to be ousted. He still has significant support. But after 2 decades in power, the shine has begun to rub off his presidency. Where were the protests? In Moscow, the BBC's Sarah Rainsford says protesters played cat and mouse with police, getting up close to officers before retreating to safety. Police snatch squads pulled some protesters through the lines of riot shields. Footage showed a stream of people being escorted onto buses by riot police. Protesters then attempted to reach the Matrosskaya Tashina prison where Mr. Navalny is being held. Mr. Navalny's wife, Yulia Navalnaya, was among those detained at Sunday's protest. She was later released. Ahead of the protests, she posted on Instagram, "If we stay quiet, then they could come for any of us tomorrow." Police said the protests were illegal, and Russian authorities warned that the gatherings could spread the coronavirus. A 40-year-old protester in Moscow told Reuters, "I understand that I live in a totally lawless state, in a police state with no independent courts, in a country ruled by corruption. I would like to live differently," she said. In St. Petersburg, Mr. Putin's home city, a crowd gathered in a central square and chanted, "Down with the Tsar." Rallies in support of Mr. Navalny also took place in eastern Russia. In the Siberian city of Novosibirsk, at least 2,000 people marched through the city chanting, "Freedom" and "Putin is a thief." In Yakutsk, where temperatures fell to 40 C, a protester named Ivan said it was the first rally he had attended. "I am tired of the despotism and lawlessness of the authorities. No questions have been answered. I want clarity, openness, and change. This is what made me come here," he said. Further rallies saw about 1,000 people demonstrate in Omsk, also in Siberia, and about 7,000 people protest in Yekaterinburg in the Ural region. According to local media reports, the OVD Info Monitoring Group said police had detained more than 5,000 people at protests in 86 cities across the country. They included 1,608 held in Moscow and 1,122 in St. Petersburg. Later on Sunday, Mr. Navalny's Moscow campaign headquarters announced the end of the day's protests and called on supporters to attend a rally on Tuesday at a Moscow court where a ruling will be made on Mr. Navalny's detention. A number of close associates of Mr. Navalny have been detained since last week, and others, including his brother and Pussy Riot activist Maria Alyokina, have been put under house arrest. The chief editor of a Russian website specializing in human rights, Sergei Smirnov, was also arrested outside his home on Saturday. News of his detention, apparently over allegations he participated in last week's protests, has been condemned by other journalists. In Moscow, police have reportedly been struggling to find space in jail for supporters of the opposition leader. What reaction has there been? In a tweet, the EU's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell said he deplored widespread detentions and disproportionate use of force. The new U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, condemned the persistent use of harsh tactics against peaceful protesters and journalists. He called for Mr. Navalny and other opposition supporters to be released. In response, the Russian Foreign Ministry accused the U.S. of gross interference in its internal affairs and of using online platforms to promote the protests. Myanmar military takes control of country after detaining Aung San Suu Kyi. Myanmar's military has taken control of the country after Aung San Suu Kyi and other political leaders were arrested in the early hours. Hours after the arrests, military TV confirmed a state of emergency had been declared for 1 year. The coup comes after tension rose between the civilian government and the military following a disputed election. Myanmar, also known as Burma, was ruled by the military until democratic reforms began in 2011. The military said on Monday it was handing power to Commander-in-Chief Min Aung Hlaing. Soldiers are on the streets of the capital, Naypyidaw, and the main city, Yangon. In November's election, Ms. Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy (NLD) won enough seats to form a government. The army says the vote was fraudulent. Aung San Suu Kyi, democracy icon who fell from grace. What you need to know about the Rohingya crisis. The BBC's Southeast Asia correspondent, Jonathan Head, says the coup appears to be a clear violation of the constitution drafted by the military more than a decade ago, and which it promised to honor only on Saturday. Detaining political leaders like Ms. Suu Kyi is a provocative and very risky move, one which may well be strongly opposed, our correspondent says. What has the reaction been? The United States has condemned the coup, saying Washington opposes any attempt to alter the outcome of recent elections or impede Myanmar's democratic transition. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called for the release of all government officials and civil society leaders and said the U.S. stands with the people of Burma in their aspirations for democracy, freedom, peace, and development. The military must reverse these actions immediately. In Australia, Foreign Affairs Minister Marise Payne said, "We call on the military to respect the rule of law, to resolve disputes through lawful mechanisms and to release immediately all civilian leaders and others who have been detained unlawfully." John Sifton of Human Rights Watch said, "The military junta that ruled Myanmar for decades never really stepped away from power in the first place. They never really submitted to civilian authority in the first place. So today's events in some sense are merely revealing a political reality that already existed. The doors just opened to a very different future than Myint U." Yangon-based historian and author described the outlook. "I have a sinking feeling that no one will really be able to control what comes next. And remember, Myanmar's a country awash in weapons, with deep divisions across ethnic and religious lines, where millions can barely feed themselves. What is the situation on the ground? Mobile internet data connections and some phone services have been disrupted in major cities, while the state broadcaster MRTV says it is having technical issues and is off air. Communications with Naypyidaw are down and it is difficult to assess the situation there. In the country's largest city and former capital Yangon, phone lines and internet appears to be limited. With many providers cutting their services, there are reports that people in Yangon are rushing to get money from ATMs amid expectations of a cash crunch in the coming days. Some ATMs already appear to not be working and it's unclear whether banks will open. What happened in the election? The NLD won 83% of available seats in the 8th of November election in what many saw as a referendum on Ms. Suu Kyi's civilian government. It was just the second election since the end of military rule in 2011. But the military has disputed the result, filing complaints at the Supreme Court against the president and the chair of the Electoral Commission. Fears of a coup rose after the military recently threatened to take action over alleged fraud. The Election Commission has rejected the allegations. Who is Aung San Suu Kyi? Aung San Suu Kyi is the daughter of Myanmar's independence hero, General Aung San. He was assassinated when she was only 2 years old, just before Myanmar gained independence from British colonial rule in 1948. Ms. Suu Kyi was once seen as a beacon for human rights, a principled activist who gave up her freedom to challenge the ruthless army generals who ruled Myanmar for decades. In 1991, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize while still under house arrest, and hailed as an outstanding example of the power of the powerless. Ms. Suu Kyi spent nearly 15 years in detention between 1989 and 2010. In November 2015, she led the National League for Democracy (NLD) to a landslide victory in Myanmar's first openly contested election for 25 years. The Myanmar constitution forbids her from becoming president because she has children who are foreign nationals. But Ms. Suu Kyi, now 75, is widely seen as de facto leader. But since becoming Myanmar's state councillor, her leadership has been defined by the treatment of the country's mostly Muslim Rohingya minority. In 2017, hundreds of thousands of Rohingya fled to neighboring Bangladesh due to an army crackdown sparked by deadly attacks on police stations in Rakhine State. Ms. Suu Kyi's former international supporters accused her of doing nothing to stop rape, murder and possible genocide by refusing to condemn the still powerful military or acknowledge accounts of atrocities. A few initially argued that she was a pragmatic politician, trying to govern a multi-ethnic country with a complex history. But her personal defense of the army's actions at the International Court of Justice hearing in 2019 in The Hague was seen as a new turning point that obliterated what little remained of her international reputation. At home, however, the lady, as Ms. Suu Kyi is known, remains wildly popular among the Buddhist majority who hold little sympathy for the Rohingya.